I want to make this announcement that the subject matter is not for everybody. It touches upon serious subjects such as suicide. So this is a fair warning to anybody that may want to listen to this. It is age appropriate, and it's not recommended for anybody young. That is, parental discretion is definitely advised for this recording, considering the subject matter being. And if you are, in all seriousness, if you are feeling suicidal, you can search for suicide help online. There's several websites for that. And family and friends, somebody that you trust. Someone once said that, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And I can honestly say that what I'm about to read to you tonight, and this is true, would not have been written because I've been suicidal several times in my life. There would have been many occasions that could have ended, and you would not be listening to the words that I'm about to read this hour. So stick around. I mean, honestly, it's hard and it can be difficult, but there are always people that care and always people that are willing to listen to you.
I'll just do a quick introduction. So tonight we welcome Brian to the stage, as otherwise known as Rational Poet on Twitter. He has a blog and lots of poetry flowing pretty much almost daily or very routinely. So really glad that you could stop in to Discord and present some of your poems. Brian will be kind of hosting this for tonight, so the rest of us are just kind of chill. But I know he's got plenty to read for us. Thanks again, Brian.
All right. Well, I definitely have to start off. The first two poems are two people I love, about two people that I love very dearly that are no longer with us, unfortunately. The first and foremost poem goes out to my mom. And I wrote this after her passing, and it was about a game that we used to play. We used to play at the nursing home that I kind of invented, and I think I'll explain it. You might be able to understand it but after the poem, I'll explain it to you. It's called "Don't Say Goodbye." It started one night when I left, just to be silly, to get a smile. Everyone says bye, but it happened one night. Instead, I responded, "Bicentennial." It became a game between me and my mom to come up with bye-sounding words. To each, we'd respond. The game was not to repeat each other's favorite as we parted each night. She'd respond to my bicentennial with biplane, and it went on and on. I'd say bison, but would be in trouble if I picked her two favorites, buy one, get one free, or bicarbonate of soda. But we would run out eventually, knowing I would have to eventually leave. She'd end it with buy dog and cat food, knowing I'd have to make stops on my way home. Feeling her cold skin at the funeral home, the vile stiffness, it won't happen again. It was as if I could wake her up just in a sleep, the way they prepped her. I can only find comfort she's no longer in pain, but I hate that we will never play that game again. Bicentennial, biplane, bison, biped, bicarbonate of soda, biography, buy one, get one free. I love you, Mom. I'll see you in the morning. That's to my mom, Jane. She passed away in 2017. And we came up with a silly word game that with the buy in it. And we would just think as many by-sounding words as we could until we would run out. Yeah, it really hit me after her death. Those moments that you'll never have again. And she was a wonderful mom. She was a bit of an authoritarian growing up, but that all melted away in her old age, and we really became close. But I miss her. I miss her very much. It's about my best friend, Bob. And Bob and I met online. He's from Australia. And we met online in around 2002, 2003, somewhere around then. And he passed away in 2018. Yeah, 2018. And he was my best friend. He taught me a lot about science. And I don't mean made me an egghead, but overall concepts. But the most important thing that he taught me was don't fear theists in debate. Whatever stumps you, bring it to me. I'll pick it apart. And so he taught me to be fearless in debate. And he used to live one of the houses that he lived in was on an island in Queensland called Russell Island, and I got to visit him one time, only one time, unfortunately. And Russell Island is just off the coast of Brisbane in Queensland, Australia, and it's a beautiful island. And this is about the backyard of his home. It's called Russell Island. From the veranda overlooking the sloped backyard, to see the beauty is not that hard. Mangrove trees with octopus roots in low tide attack the drying mud. Great pretender, this half-moon lagoon, pretending it's a dry riverbed in some scorching part of Africa. But no, it's just a slight indentation in my friend's backyard. High tide will remind it. Shimmering silverback waters. No, you are not Africa. The underlying turquoise of the bay will remind you. The calm tide slowly creeps in. It wants to soothe the angry roots, lapping around them as if they were photons acting like both particle and wave. Those clever double-slit waters undulate the shadows of the roots, swaying and snaking under the broccoli-branched mangroves. And those chimps are not orangutans, any which way but loose. They're kookaburras. Lap, lap, lap. The tide slowly creeps in. A heavy piece of deadwood submerges like a Navy sub. But it's only temporary. The tide retreats. Those angry roots exposed again.
I love the imagery that you have in your
Thank
poems.
you. It's a beautiful backyard. It was very simple. I mean, not a lot of palm trees or anything, but mangroves. And when the tide went out, it exposed like cracked mud. I mean, just like if you were in Africa in a dry riverbed that had been dry all summer. So I mean, the mud dried very quickly, and the kookaburras added to it too, because to me, they didn't sound like birds at all. They sounded like screaming chimps or screaming orangutans. So yeah, it sounded more like Africa to me.
Brian,
So
did you live there for a little while, or you
no, no,
just
no, no,
visited?
no. I only visited him once. I originally lived in Virginia when I met him, but I moved down here to North Carolina, and we talked almost every day for that 20 years that I knew him, almost every single day. And he had a stroke that devastated me. Around the same time my mom died. But I did get to see him. He survived a little over a year after his stroke. And I went and visited him once before he died. So I did get to see him in his, I mean, a nursing home before he died. So I did get to see him once. This next one is actually a pretend events that I made up, concocted in my mind about my favorite poet, Sylvia Plath, and her friend, also a fellow poet, which I found out after I watched this video on YouTube, that Sylvia Plath was being interviewed, and she introduced she said that one of her influences as a fellow poet was Anne Sexton, who also happened to be a personal friend of hers. And so I concocted this scenario in my head where Sylvia Plath, who I knew first, takes me to a party and introduces me to Anne Sexton. Unfortunately, you also have to keep in mind that both of them unfortunately committed suicide. So there's going to be a lot of suicide motifs in this poem. And Sylvia Plath killed herself by, unfortunately, sticking her head in the oven. So you'll understand that. So again, pretend scenario, we go to a party and Sylvia introduces me to Anne Sexton. It's called My New Affair. My infection, inclination, subterranean, shall it be a warm bathtub sleep, anxiety pills, whiskey on the rocks? Did I ask you to ask? No. I'm here reading your words on the recommendation from a lady who stuck her head in the oven. She thought highly of you, so why? Why this fascination, obsession, direction to the carpenter's questions never asked? Never asked why? Die, die, die. Is it that the razor blade is too dull? Is it that you are not yet high enough to fall? I'm on the girder, in the skyline, perched above the metropolis, eating my lunch of fear, wondering why I am here, dear, my dear. It is no craft, it is criminal, this theft of my senses, drawing me in with your poison, creative poison, tumultuous. I could stir it in my coffee. You look like you love coffee. Or is it tea? Anything, anything. Will you spend just a little time with me? Oh, she won't mind. She's too busy being interviewed or writing of giant statues in prison camps and pink fizz. And you walk in, grabbing me, dragging me into some sort of pact I've not agreed to. I just got here. Slow down. I just met you. There you are, the pair of you, whispering in my ears. It is painless. Hawkeye and Trapper sang of it. But for now, I want none of it. Just your company. That's it. And Sylvia, don't fight over me. A couple of references here. The Carpenter's Questions. Anne Sexton has a poem called Wanting to Die. And in that, one of the stanzas is, but suicides have a special language. Like carpenters, they want to know which tools. They never ask why build. So that's where the carpenter reference comes from. As far as the other references, you'll have to read the explanation at my blog. No, there was one other. Oh, I'm on that girder in the skyline perched above the metropolis. Have you guys ever seen the picture of the guys building a skyscraper in New York and they're all sitting on the I-beam?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay, that's what I'm referencing, that famous picture. I'm on that girder in the skyline, perched above the metropolis, eating my lunch of fear, wondering why I'm here. Meaning, why did I get myself involved with you too? So, did you want to say something, Braggadocious?
I was just saying, man, you didn't even have to explain that. It was like the imagery in your words. I mean, you paint the picture perfectly.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Appreciate that. It's a dark subject, but yeah, I appreciate that.
I could read a poem. I mean, it might not be Brian level, but I think I might have one.
No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
You can do limericks.
There once was a man from Nantucket. No, we won't go there.
I'd have to dig one up. I don't know.
You want to dig one? Let me read.
I'll let you read out. I'll see if I can find something.
Okay. This one is also an ode to Sylvia Plath. She's a big influence to me. If you know that, if you're familiar with the Colossus of Rhodes statue, that allegedly there's a debate whether that actual statue actually existed. Some say it didn't, some say it did, but that was a port in Greece. I want to say port in Greece with the statue of Colossus of Rhodes. Sylvia Plath also wrote a poem called Colossus, and it was about her dad. And also, though, the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor is based upon the Colossus of Rhodes. Most of the artwork that I found online of the Colossus of Rhodes did not have a crown on it. And the artist's name, and I only have the last name in the poem, Bartholdi, don't ask me how to pronounce that, Bartholdi, did the design for the New York Harbor. So to keep those two things in mind, okay? This is called Absent of Torch. She took the one you never had. Her father Bertholdi put it in her hand, guiding the immigrants into the harbor. How long will she stand? You, the ancient inspiration, sea merchants and warships towering over the jetties. You guided them out and in. Parallel tug of rope, sideways, vertically, violently, up and down, thumb push puppet, despite your washboard abs. The scholars of the day kept some of the Helios, tradition mandated it so, not to rebuild the final say. She took your crown, the tumulus mound, her epic bereft following her father's death. I've seen Lady Justice crumble and crash, but that was rigged. Luminari avoided Lars's head. And shambles and crumbles like salad croutons, crushed and sprinkled on the tasteless iceberg that melted and wilted when you left on the counter for your weekend adventure. The green olives turned black and red. And when you came back, limp and useless, tossed out like rubbish in the trash can, where was your head that dreadful morning when you decided you'd rather be dead? So by the way, the thumb push puppet, those are children's toys. And I don't know, has anybody ever heard of a thumb push puppet?
No, I've never heard of one.
A thumb push puppet is a little toy. It's usually made of plastic. It can also be made of wood. And it's got a round pedestal at the bottom. And the figure initially standing up, and it's got strings going through its appendages down into the pedestal. And when you press the bottom of the pedestal, the figure, which can be an animal or a human, goes limp. When you release the bottom of the pedestal, the figurine stands back up.
And that's wait, called I've seen one of those before.
And so in that stanza, where is it? A parallel tug of rope sideways, vertically, violently up and down, thumb push puppet. I'm referring to that alleged earthquake that toppled the Colossus of Rhodes in antiquity. This next one is called Amplified. Now, this one's about me. It's basically describing how I just get easily frustrated with myself in doing the most mundane things, and how my brain tells me to do something and I accidentally knock something over, or I'm really hard on myself over the stupidest crap. And I get frustrated when my brain is like, why can't you do this? And it's really bad when it comes to things like, it was really horrible when I was second guessing myself with my mom. That was like a whole depression right there, because, you just feel like you can't do anything right when it comes to taking care of your mom. The truth is, people get old. Really nothing you can do about that. But even with mundane things, like I said, and the worst with my poetry, though, is, and I've done this before, I've actually got to the last sentence and was proud of myself and wrote this beautiful piece and accidentally exited the window and lost the poem completely. One more side note before I read it. I use the word runner in this. Now, there's a military term for that, but there's also a restaurant term. A runner in the military is a person who runs through the trenches. They were mainly used in World War I, where running information back and forth from unit to unit. That's not what I'm referencing in this poem. The runner in my poem here is a restaurant runner. In other words, a waitress will take the order, but they won't bring your food out to you. A runner will. A runner, usually a busboy. And I'm talking, this poem is a metaphor for how I feel about my brain. And it's called Amplified. This thing, this gray matter, this albatross, this dead weight, this filing cabinet, this runner, bicycle courier, broken spokes, flat tire, no pump, all that data, suffocated by that enforcer, putting a plastic bag over my creativity. Why, damn it? Why? Why can't I get it down, these words, doled out like a blind blackjack dealer with no table, spilling the chips everywhere? And you cling to me, inside me, my city hall, office of records, duplicate, triplicate, lost it, shredded it, no record of it. I would pull that fire alarm just to get your attention, but you just sit there, put up your feet on your desk, taking your time to come to my office, your office, our office, just to dump the file into the trash can, just to spite me. And there isn't a thing I can do unless I turn out the lights, cut off the power, burn the building down, drop you off the roof. Hey, you want to go out for a drink after work? I know this great place. I know the bartender. He'll give you all the free drinks you want and snacks, no problem. Bowls of your favorite pills. Take as many as you like. Don't worry about the tab. It's on the house. Tomorrow, you'll get your severance pay. But don't look for references.
Ooh, I like that one.
Thank you. Yeah, that's how I feel when I screwed even the most mundane things up. But like I said, it was even worse when you second guess yourself with your mother's health. And you know you're not doing anything wrong, but it's like you ask anybody that's ever taken care of somebody. The funny thing is, I was just talking to a lady on Twitter the other day who's going through the same thing I went through, and she's like blaming herself. It's like, people get old. There's nothing you can do about it. Just do the best you can, but it's not easy. You do get into the self-blame no matter what, because it's like you don't want anything to happen to them. Anyway,
I
okay.
found a poem. Is it appropriate time to read it, or should I wait?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, I could use a break.
This is like really old shit. So I'm like, I had to go back into the crevices of my file cabinet. All right, this is one called The Letter That Is Never Written. I wanted to write to you today, but the action that was not done did not undo my dismay or start with page 1. Stranded in this thought, my mind I cannot leave in silence. This letter rots, never forming a reprieve. The pen never graced a page to be sent, but the thought cannot be erased. My mind was the stamp that was spent.
Wow. I like that.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's a world first. I've never read that to anyone.
Wait a minute, you wrote that?
I wrote that.
That's good.
Thank you.
Give yourself that's one thing. I'll tell you, it's funny that at that poetry group, there was one snobby ass guy named Stuart Nottingham. Not making that name up. That's really what the guy's name was. He wasn't a medieval character in a movie. That bastard was such a fucking snob. One thing that he did not like was untitled poems. So over the years, over a couple of years periods, everybody, that kind of started circulating around because we had nearly 100 people in that group. Not all of them showed up every single time. So we would average anywhere from 25 to 75 people on more like close to 30 on average, depending upon what time of the year. Anyway, so we all decided to gang up on him one day and all write untitled poems.
Nice.
And so after the first one, I looked over at him and he just rolled his eyes. And then the second person read theirs. He rolled his eyes. And then the third one, he knew something was up and he just looked over, he just turned his head, spanned on his, everybody was looking at him smiling. Yes, you can tell he was thinking, you fucking bastards. Oh, that was sweet. That was sweet. But I'm not honestly, I don't mind technocrats, but I love amateurs just as well. I don't think everything is, if you're writing hickory dickory dock, you definitely need to work on it, but you don't need to be Poe, you don't need to be Shakespeare. Just be, what I tell poets, just be yourself. If you're yourself, you're not always going to write. This is the other thing I always admit to, because people keep telling me my poems are crap. And I go, yeah, most of them are. But when we look at famous artists in general, we never see the stuff they throw away. And I guarantee you, for every famous painting, for every famous poem, even the Beatles had a lot of songs that you will never hear, or that they just ended up scrapping and threw away. There's a lot more of that for each artist, especially I would say with poets and with painters. I went to the Picasso Museum in Brisbane when I was there, and I can tell you, everybody knows Guernica, but I saw his drawings of the human body, his sketches, and they're certainly better than most people, but they weren't realistic looking. You know what I mean? So maybe that's why he became a cubist. Anyway, so just be
If you got
yourself.
lemonade, if you got lemons, make lemonade, buddy.
There you go. Braggy, do you have something available yourself?
Okay. Oh, by the way, this is Ricky Johnson. I write with in the Pantheon and in the Crescent, and that's how I got onto Discord. I don't know how to use it very well, but when I got on, I used that nom de plume because nobody was using their real names in the group, so I thought you had to do that on Discord. But yeah, it's me, Ricky. Hey, most of my poetry on Twitter it's been shaped by the 280 character limit, and so like I do these 4 or 5 stanzas, 3 or 4 lines per stanza kind of thing. But I have other poetry sometimes that just barely doesn't fit. I like short poems, and this one is it's a different deal from what I do on Twitter. It's an ethery, which is a 10-line poem, and each line you either start at 10 and work down to 1, or you start at 1 and work up to 10 in terms of syllables. So that's what this one is. It's called Hopeless Pitch. Hopeless pitch on roiled and rising sea. Lost to it, the man I'm meant to be. The killing brine I drink freely. I am your beggar, sister. Mold covered, smelling ripe, clutching a crack pipe. Could be Jesus, testing love. God waits, still. That's it.
Wow.
Your voice, dude. That's nice.
Yeah, I hate that voice. It's so good.
I know.
I've got a wimpy child's voice. That's what I have.
That's mean, Brian. To me and to you.
Yeah.
You behave, man.
I could do my my 8th grader doing Scarface.
Okay, we're waiting. I want to hear that.
Say hello to my little friend. Anyway, we're moving on to the next poem. I'm going to read 4 more. Okay. This one is called The Illusion, and I don't think it really needs an explanation other than it's basically saying, accept that you're finite. Don't worry about what's going to happen to you afterwards because it'll feel the same before. Okay. So I don't really think it needs an explanation. The illusion. From the onset, from the first breath, the sickle chases us to a variety of death. We fight in futility this final reality with vacuous labels of class and status. Since Adam's decay, to our dismay, the futile efforts we display. Our masks have names and race and religion, of power and wealth and national origin. And in our history, none have escaped this finite reality all will face. The illusion enticing the peacock strut with fanciful feathers attracting others. Plumes of falsehood, empty promises, and hollow threats divide humanity. Trapped we are by this illusion, painfully obvious is our imagination. A way out will never be, no matter what lie we believe. From the fame, to the farmer, to the pope, to the president, all who are, all who were, and all who will ever be will be swallowed by time and obscurity. The cosmos is cold, uncaring, and not cognitive. Please spare me from your accusation of negativity born from credulity. Nay, be I fatalistic or pessimistic merely from facing reality. Are there wonders and happiness to be found here and now? A resounding yes! I too shout yes, yes, yes! I have no choice. A kitten's purr, a loved one's hug, I value too without myth-making. The illusion must die for the mind to survive. The sickle, the victor, and will always win. It reaps our bodies and our stories, laughing at petty attempts to outlast our dark robe. Facing the finite is solitude. Incantations are pale placebos. We dress and redress our ice cream, hoping it won't melt. It does. It will. It is our finality.
Nice.
Love that, man.
Thank you.
I was supposed to leave at 6:30. I have an appointment, but this has been so good. I'm running late now, so with my sincerest apologies, I'm gonna have to log out now.
Okay. No. I'm never speaking to you again until next time. You evil person! You actually have a life.
Oh,
You did this deliberately.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we all agree that you have like amazing, sexy poet reading voice.
Just make sure you invite me whenever anybody else. This has been nice. It's
Yeah,
kind of nice to hear a poet, read their stuff.
And make sure you follow OK Atheists and stick around for more announcements in the future.
Yeah, I followed you guys on Twitter, right?
Yes.
Yes, I've already followed you. Okay. Well, thanks so much, Brian, for letting me hear.
You're welcome. Thank you for reading yours.
Okay. Yeah. Well, anytime, brother, anytime. Y'all take care.
Yeah, that was nice of him to drop by. All right, this one's called. By the way, to understand this, you need to go to the poem itself. Do you know where my blog is?
Yes, but I don't know it offhand.
Brian James, Rational Poet. It's all lowercase, no spaces. Brian James, Rational Poet.blog. And then it should be below the intro. The one I'm about to read is Jester's Box.
Oh, okay.
Click on that one, and it'll take you to the poem itself. And then scroll down to the bottom. And that's the painting that I'm basing this poem on. By the way, the painting is called The Disquieting Muses. Do not ask me to read the artist's name. It's Gregorio something. If you look at the painting while I read this, you should be able to follow. Okay. The Jester's Box. The Jester's Box. The statues locked, deflating balloons, their heads be soon. Never in the sky will you see the moon. Agonized in pleated stone, nowhere to roam. Cast out from the castle, they freeze in gloom. Industrial factories in background loom. No contemplation except that of doom. Shadow lurching, motionless boom. Muses, this can't be true. What has the painter done to you? Fright and silence, shock fills the room. Lonely deck, forever their home. The removed mask has no task. It cannot cry, it cannot laugh. The statue's stagnation, they can't ask. Disheveled togas, fading fast. That's it.
Nice. Yeah, you can definitely visualize better with the painting.
Yeah, the Jester's Box is that little box down. You know how Jester's hats have argyle patterns?
Yep.
Do you see the box with the triangles on it?
I do.
That's what I mean by Jester's Box. Now, Sylvia Plath wrote about the same painting, but you see how I said their heads look like deflating balloons?
Mm-hmm. Sylvia
described the heads of the statues as darning eggs, and a darning egg is a maraca, kind of like oblong maraca-shaped knitting tool. And what you would do with the darning egg is you would stick it in a sock if it had a hole in it, and you would use it to mold the foot so that you could fix whatever, whether it's a shoe or a sock. And I could do a lot of other explanations, but the explanation is under the poem. You can go look at the rest of it that yourself.
Okay,
So
cool.
I wrote that because of Sylvia Plath, and guess what? Another Sylvia Plath inspired poem. Okay, I'm not obsessed. I really am not. This one is in name only. The title of this poem and Sylvia only has to do with the title. It has nothing to do with any of the content of Sylvia's life, or it's an ode in title only. But the theme of the poem is Halloween. You could read this poem at Halloween. You're going to scroll down to the next one. It's Acrostic Interviewer, and you can read along with me when you look at that. And it's if you an acrostic poem is one where the first letter of each line in each stanza going down spells something. So in this case, the first stanza spells Sylvia. The second stanza spells Plath, her last name. The third stanza spells my favorite poem, Cut, and then the last two stanzas spell her name again, going down. Now, the interviewer part is an ode to her poem, The Applicant, about how sexist men look at women back. But again, it's not about the content. Every applicant has an interviewer. So again, this is only an ode in title only. Acrostic Interviewer. Surrender to a conspiracy. You black ravens hide in night's shadow. Leather and spikes in the dungeon. Precipitous rumbling silently stalking. Indigenous beast on my flesh feeding. At 2 a.m., the owls are plotting. Please night light spotlight, left dimming in the gray fogs blocking, and cloaking, maddening screaming, the darkness sightless shrill of nothing. Help will not be coming. Cunning and stealthy, underworld's authority, the Amityville horror. Slippery, stumbling over dead bodies. You are the ME writing the autopsies. Lecherous gnashing of fangs waiting. Voraciously nocturnal, never sleeping. In front of you, arms, that of a zombie. Allegory? It's the bat's cave now. Plato lost his apology. Last is the hemlock Socrates drinks. At least it's over. No more pain agonies. The dawn reveals vultures hovering over my carcass.
Thank you.
And by the way, a group of crows is called a murder. A group of ravens is called a conspiracy. This one is called Envious Moon. The moon, bone white jeweler, looking down on this sapphire. No monocle, back and forth it floats. Is it envy that causes its sarcastic smile? And all the while we put in all that toil in hopes of a love to spoil, only to end in soil. We can talk of pain in that old refrain, to fear not, the sun will rise again, is not to make a plan, only to savor the moment in that it happened at all.
I like that one.
No monocle, back and forth. Have you ever seen a jeweler in a movie or at a real jeweler where they take that little magnifying or monocle and they move it back and forth over a diamond or a piece of jewelry to inspect it? That's how I view the moon when it floats in the sky, and it's always in a different position, as if it's staring down at our lives, you know.
Oh, I have a question on that one. At the end, you have written it was inspired by the creative chick and her poem Luminous. Who is that?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. She is on she is on World Press, the same the same platform of World Press, and she wrote a poem Luminous that inspired me to write this one.
Nice.
I didn't want to read it without her permission, so that's really all I can say.
I was curious. I just hadn't heard. I'm not familiar in the world of poetry, so.
Oh no, she's not famous. She's like me. No. But she's good. The next one will be Aurora Borealis. and there will be a picture of a painting. And I actually talked to this guy on Facebook, and I wrote a poem about his painting. And it's a beautiful painting. It reminded me of Van Gogh's Starry Nights. And again, since we're talking about my favorite poets, Anne Sexton, the other poet that I read in my new affair, the real poet Anne Sexton wrote about Van Gogh's Starry Nights. And one of the lines she said in her poem was, "The town that does not exist," is one of the lines in her poem. And you will hear in my poem, the forest does not exist, the forest that does not exist. So that's my reference to Anne Sexton in the poem I'm about to read. And his Aurora Borealis, when you look at it, just reminds me of the Impressionism of Van Gogh's painting and the colors that he used. Kurt Pendley is the artist's name, in the Northern Lights is what he calls his painting. I'm calling my poem Aurora Borealis. I actually sent this poem to him and he liked it. Aurora Borealis. Maybe he was a go-getter, inspiring his Northern Lights. Was Anne Sexton possessing me when I laid eyes on his strokes? Those dancing double Dutch neon, Tesla neon green plasma dominating the forest that does not exist, the forgotten peak on the horizon, jealous of the dark forest I'm lost in, poltergeist fog hugging the ground, undulating and around no motion, no sound, but like the sky dancing in isolation and the sun hiding in the background. It can't compete with the dance it started. It can only watch from a distance, and the forest makes my skin crawl. I want nothing to do with it at all. It would be a great place to make a grave for your victims, a nowhere place where screams can never be heard, and the lights ignore your fear. They know you are mesmerized. They know you can't look away. The poltergeist white makes you pray. I love that painting.
Yeah, I do too. And I love your line, a go-getter. That's very
A
smart.
go-getter.
I love it.
That was kind of, you know what, out of all the lines, that's the other thing. I can sit there and point out my favorite line in this poem to myself, but whenever somebody reads it, they always see something different. They do. Because I was like, when I wrote that, I was like, yeah, that's pretty cheesy. But you liked it, so that's
but it's so you though. I like that's Brian coming out there too.
Thanks a lot. Anyway, all right, yay! Last one, the dino.
Pew, 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 pew.
Yoo-hoo! Okay, now again, go back because this one is based on a painting, and this is actually my favorite painting in the whole wide world. But I think it reminds me of when I used to go out to bars when I was in my 20s. And you know, that's a diner, of course, but I used to like to dress up like in suits, and I liked fedoras, and I like the London fog trench coats.
Mm-hmm.
If I could transport myself back into a decade, it would be the 1940s, like the Bogey and Bacall days, that kind of look. And I guess that's what this painting, Nighthawks, is the name of it. Did you get to the painting yet?
Come on. The diner, right?
Yes, you click on the diner, and then when you scroll to the bottom, you should be able to see the painting Nighthawks.
Oh yeah.
The diner. All the swiveled tools empty except for three, two together, one man separately. The short order cook bent over. Maybe he needs an ashtray. What is that she's holding? Looks like a book of matches. Looks like the lady with red hair in her red dress is contemplating. In some weekday off hour after midnight, a few hours later, dim street lights illuminate asphalt sidewalk storefronts, competing with the lights inside. No interest in their faces, merely going through the paces. She won't make bed with him. The fedora knows it. He's alone. And the silver cylinders dispensing stale Java, loyal penguins, is as hot as fire at this 3 a.m. hour. The city streets still. Lost is desire. It seems all involved want the night over. That's it. Thank you. I don't know why I love that painting. I just do. It just reminds me of my 20s, when I was in my 20s and I like to go out to bars in suits and wear suits. I actually never had a job that required a suit. I've always been a low wage worker. That's what I get for being a poet.
Well, maybe one. So, have you ever compiled these together besides on a website? Like, have you self-published them somewhere?
No, not through a publishing company. No. But as far as like major publishing companies that can put you in every bookstore in the United States, that's extremely difficult.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, you can't kind of. I mean, I'm right where I want to be. I'm getting enough of an audience. You know, if somebody stumbles across it and notices me, that's a different story. But I'm not going to kill myself trying to make that work.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
I'm too. You know,
I'm really glad that you could sit with us here and share some poems, and you have some really beautiful poems tonight. So I'll try to put this together and in the future. I really appreciate you doing this.
well, thank you. I really appreciate. Yeah, I really enjoyed doing it. My advice to poets is just be yourself. If you can tweak my voice and make me sound, I don't know, like Marlon Brando or something.
Bragg's voice. I mean, his voice was like hypnotizing. I was like, whoa, what?
Right.
Exactly.
I've always hated my voice. You know, I said who is it? General MacArthur. You know, the guy who said, "I shall return." He had a very squeaky voice. He didn't really have a masculine voice. Can you imagine that? What are you doing, soldier? That's not the right way to do that.
And then no one can laugh.
Right, and no one can laugh. Right.
All right. Well, anyway, I've got to end this, but thanks again, Brian, and you guys
Thank you.
Really good night.
Right, you too. Bye.